All right, we are live, folks. What's going on? Welcome back to another podcast live stream here. We got quite a few questions here today, so I appreciate all the pre-live stream questions. Again, if you want your questions answered during the stream in depth, make sure to ask them pre-live stream. That way I actually prepare for them and they're more in depth. Let me let the people know that we are live real quick. All right. Also, make sure to hit the like button to get us up in the algorithm, folks. The more eyes, the better the conversations, right? Because there's more minds asking questions, discussing. What's going on, Vigil? Thanks for coming in. Trey, thanks for coming in, brother. Make sure to hit the like button, hit the sub button if you're brand new, if this is your first time on the stream or on my channel in general. Make sure to hit the sub button as well. And we have quite a bit of questions to go through. Thanks for all the support. Just wanted to say that before we begin. So, what's going on, Kronos? Sean, what's going on, brother? Thanks for coming in. All right, so first question. So this is actually a Dragon Ball question. We started with one of these instead of Naruto. We usually start Naruto. Do you think if Vegeta fought Frieza first during Resurrection of Frieza, he would stand a better chance? All right, interesting question. Actually, Vegeta would have a harder time considering he would be dealing with a fresh and fully replenished Golden Frieza rather than a fatigued and defeated Golden Frieza because of his battle with Goku, clearly. The odds for Golden Frieza statistically of defeating Vegeta himself would be higher because he's fully replenished and he's fully energized to battle, right? So I think that makes quite a bit of sense, rationally speaking. However, I still see Vegeta defeating Golden Frieza because it seems like Super Saiyan Blue was just his kryptonite in general, and it didn't seem that Goku and Vegeta were that far off as far as their power levels. I think they were pretty relative, to be quite honest. And I think he would eliminate him possibly as well. He probably would kill Frieza. Right. So that would be my answer to that question. It's 5 a.m. for me. And brother, you got the commitment. I appreciate it. What's going on, Alexa? And what's going on, Miriam? All right, let's continue on. Make sure to hit the like button, folks, if you just got in here. All right, continuing on. Feel free to ask questions as well, folks. There wasn't too many pre-live stream questions, actually, so I'll be answering a lot of your live questions as well. All right, so if Fugaku was able to find out Obito was behind the Nine Tails attack, would he have held off the coup d'etat and spoken with Hiruzen to create a task force? Actually, this is what I would say about that. I would predict that Fugaku would be aware that he would first need proof to prove his claim that none of the Uchiha within their clan in Konoha are behind this, right? So that he would have to find proof, which would not be easy. Why? Because Obito has Kamui. And the second Obito even gets a hint that he's being tracked or watched, he can simply go to the Kamui dimension. It would be nearly impossible to get any evidence that Obito was the culprit of the Nine Tails attack. It would be almost impossible. So honestly, nothing would really change anyway. Nothing would really change. If he were to just go to the third and just straight up claim, hey, this wasn't us, Danzo wouldn't roll with that. You know how Danzo, and he's a contrarian. He likes to wield power with an iron fist, and we all know the third Hokage was a weak, spineless Hokage when it came to that. The reason why the massacre took place in the first place of the Uchiha. Hence, nothing would really change, unless they did successfully get proof, which would be damn near impossible. They would need a confession from Obito, which is not happening. Not happening. All right. Do you think Orange Piccolo is stronger than Goku and Vegeta? This is a tough question. I did make a video a couple of days ago on Black Frieza versus Gohan Beast. So I can only give a hypothesis, right? Not a definitive answer. So it depends on where you place superhero within the timeline. If you presuppose that it's after the Granola arc, then most likely Piccolo is stronger than Goku and Vegeta currently in the DBS manga as of chapter 87. However, if you presuppose that superhero took place before the Granola arc or even during it around some arbitrary point in time, then he's most likely not stronger than true Ultra Instinct Goku or Ultra Ego Vegeta, and Gohan Beast would also not be stronger than them as well. So it really presupposes on where you place superhero in the timeline. People think that there's a 100% answer. There isn't. There isn't an answer on that. So people are like, 100% it's after the Granola arc. No, it's not. There is no definitive answer yet. Right? Which is why in my video I give a hypothesis. I didn't say that this was the answer. It was a hypothesis. So, from my lens, there isn't enough empirically to suggest that superhero was after the Granola arc. So, I would say Black Frieza would defeat Gohan Beast. As of now, it could change very quickly. In the next chapter, who knows, we get a enlightenment on the timeline. But it is debatable. Nothing has been set in stone. That's what I can say, definitively. You getting over that cold? Yeah. That cold? I am. It's just throat's healing from all that coughing and shit. But pretty much I'm back. Alright, so continuing on. Asuma versus Zabuza. This is actually quite an interesting matchup. Alright, so this is my take on this. So, from what we can safely, rationally deduce, right, from what we can extrapolate from the canonical literature, is that Zabuza certainly defeats Part 1 Asuma. Right, Part 1 Kakashi scales above all Jonin besides probably Guy with Gates, and Zabuza debatedly defeated Kakashi in the first battle. So, hence, Zabuza would be Part 1 Asuma. That's a pretty easy conclusion to come to, and it's not really that contentious. However, this is where it gets contentious. Considering the Jonin got stronger for Part 1 to Shippuden, with Kakashi having MS and Asuma competing with Hidan to some arbitrary degree, it's a little bit more difficult to say how this would go. In fact, you could even make an argument for Asuma beating Zabuza. So what makes this considerably ambiguous and contentious is that Zabuza dies at the beginning of Part 1, where we could establish his relativity to specifically Part 1 Kakashi. Yet Kakashi in Shippuden clearly gets stronger, right? And from there, we can transitively imply all the other Jonin get stronger as well. There's nothing to indicate they wouldn't. Why wouldn't they train, right? Obviously, they're training as well. So, however, the data books specifically indicate that Hidan and Zabuza have equal strength in taijutsu, with Zabuza having a slight edge in speed in the data book. Alright, but continuing on with this, there is a disconnect here, right? Because if the data books state that they're damn near equivalent besides speed, where there's a slight edge for Zabuza, then how come Zabuza had a tough time with a much weaker Kakashi in Part 1, and Hidan competed with a much stronger Kakashi in Shippuden? So you can't really revere the data books' calculations of their power, because that doesn't seem to be the case, empirically speaking, in the narrative itself. It doesn't make any sense, right? But I will say this. Some would counter me and say, well, Hidan didn't even land a single hit in Kakashi, indicating a large gap in power. However, you would also have to imply that Kakashi is the same Kakashi that fought Zabuza, which is not correct. It's not correct. That's clearly not the same Kakashi. Part 1 Kakashi got tired after using his Sharingan for a very, very limited amount of time. Kakashi in Shippuden is already gradually spamming his MS abilities. It's not even remotely the same person, right? So, continuing on. Due to this, I tend to value feats over the statements, including the databook statements. So I would simply say that there's a good chance Shippuden era Asuma beats Zabuza mid to high difficulty. I don't think it would be easy. There is some arbitrary range or relativity, I would argue, because Asuma did get handled by Hidan. Yes, he had help from Kakuzu towards the end, but Hidan got the best of him, right? So I would say there's some arbitrary level of relativity, but I still lean towards Asuma because of the increase in power that the Jonin went through from Part 1 to Shippuden, and Zabuza being dead, hence there is no more progression for him. So that's what I would say. Asuma most likely beats Zabuza. Post-Shippuden, pre-Shippuden, he gets fucking folded because he's clearly weaker than Part 1 Kakashi, and he loses to Zabuza because Zabuza is relative to Kakashi in Part 1. Your rants and opinions, anime, and overall things is refreshing. Appreciate it, Luis. Thanks for coming in, brother. DMS Kakashi versus 8 Gates. DMS Kakashi absolutely obliterates 8 Gates. It's not even a competition. You trying to get a beard? I'm not a beard person. I feel like my complexion isn't made for that. I've had somewhat of a beard before, and it's not my thing. By the way, folks, any donations prioritize the questions I answer. So if any donations are appreciated in general. We're continuing on here. Yeah, DMS Kakashi versus 8 Gates is not even a competition, to be honest. Alright, so this is an interesting question. Why is magnet release used to control sand and gold when neither are magnetic? Alright, so I think the term magnetic release is more of a nod to the third Kazekage's ability, in which he used a substance that is magnetic, at least in the real world, right? Iron is actually one of the most magnetic compounds on Earth, at least metals. So I think it's not so much something we should take hyper literally, because gold isn't magnetic. That's correct, and sand isn't magnetic either, right? And that sand in particular doesn't have any magnetic compounds that are known in the real world. So I think it's more so just a nod to the third, which is why the fourth named his own, and they consider it magnet release. That's the way I look at it. It's more of an aesthetic thing rather than a hyper literal thing in comparison to the third's ability, in which he did use a magnetic substance. That's the best way to rationalize it, right? Because gold isn't magnetic. That's correct. All right, continuing on. Next question. This one is also another interesting one. How strong would you scale manga novel Shisui? Who would you put him on par with? This is an interesting one. So firstly, the following is me wanking Shisui to the highest extent. So I'm going to give him the benefit on the doubts on many things here, just to keep that in mind. This isn't my definitive answer or my actual answer. This is just me scaling him as high as possible because I like Shisui. All right, so considering Danzo had to have the Aburame clan poison Shisui to best him in battle, indicates Shisui clearly scales above that particular version of Danzo. I think we can all agree with that. He scales above that particular version of Danzo because Danzo didn't engage him in battle one-on-one. He had to poison him to the point where he was basically paralyzed, by the way. Continuing on, Danzo states Shisui is the strongest Uchiha of his time, and for those that haven't read the novel, MS Itachi implies that Shisui would have been a difficult opponent. So even him with MS still considers Shisui very, very threatening to himself. So continuing on, hence I would put him on par with someone like teenage MS Itachi to some arbitrary degree, at least relative to. So if we scale and wank Shisui to the highest degree, he scales to teenage Itachi when he first gets MS. So Part 1 Kakashi versus Part 1 Gaara. Gaara is just has that X factor that puts him above the likes of a average Genin, clearly, right? So Part 1 Kakashi, I'll simply say this. The best way to scale this is to bring in the Sound 4 into consideration. The Sound 4 had trouble against, very mid-tier Jonin who were coming back from a mission. They had to use their curse marks. And the Genin had a tough time with the Sound 4. Gaara had a tough time with Naruto. That Naruto had a similar amp when he faced Kidomaru. Kakashi clearly scales above the likes of the Sound 4. So rationally and empirically, I think Kakashi would most likely get the victory based on the empirical pieces that are provided. Maybe you could wank Gaara and say, well, what if he goes on a rampage and the whole One Tail is summoned? Maybe there would be something interesting there. It's a possibility. But besides that, he'd probably lose. Are your glasses prescribed? No, but I should get some. My eyes are just sensitive to blue light, which is why I have to wear glasses. That are shaded, by the way. All right, continuing on. This one is another interesting matchup. So, Chunin Exam Kankuro versus Chunin Exam Temari. Alright, so this is an interesting battle because Kankuro and Temari in character would know of each other's arsenals better than anybody because they're siblings, obviously. Temari basically lost to Shikamaru, who forfeited the match, and Kankuro stalemated in a battle against Shino, which technically wasn't in the Chunin exams, but it was during that time. So I would actually take Kankuro as he dealt with a more powerful opponent in Shino. I think Shino would beat Shikamaru. He has, tools that would negate Shikamaru's threat with the Shadow Possession. He has insects that could fly, right? Shikamaru wouldn't theoretically be able to get a hold of all the insects, especially if he dissipates them throughout a certain radius. You won't be able to get all of them, at least. So Kankuro also has better defense, I'd say, better than Temari's. Clearly, Temari is more so just a long-range fighter. Kankuro would have his defense and also have the element of poison as an advantage. So one hit that he lands on Temari with the poison that he uses, the infamous poison, the same that he used against Shino, Temari would fall, and that would be the end of it. So Kankuro most likely beats him. Part 1 Kakashi versus Shikamaru. That's a tough one. Kakashi versus Shikamaru. There's a possibility it could be competitive. There is a possibility. It's hard to scale Kakashi at that point in time. I tend to lean towards Kakashi, rationally, but empirically I can't really substantiate that claim or conclusion. You could make the case for Kimimaro. I mean, he told the Sound Force straight up, I'll kill you all if you fail to do what Orochimaru wants, implying he's vastly superior to all of them, even sick. I think there's a possibility it can go either way, to give my best answer. Alright. Okay, so the next question here is another interesting one, even though I can answer it quite quickly. The third Kazekage versus Hanzo. Alright, so this is another interesting one as well. Simply put, the third Kazekage fell to Sasori, who had some arbitrary level of struggle with Sakura and an old Chiyo, who scales below a prime Chiyo, who scales to Hanzo having multiple battles where they stalemated. Hence, simply put, Hanzo more than likely scales above the third Kazekage and would beat him. So it's pretty simple. Alright, folks. Let's see what you guys have asked here. Edo Tobirama versus base Edo Minato. Minato. Tobirama admits inferiority, at least in terms of speed, when they get to the battlefield. So Minato. Alright, continuing on. Again, folks, donations prioritize your question, and they're all, unless you're a member, then your questions are prioritized, so think about doing that as well. And your questions also get prioritized, becoming a member of the channel as well. Alright, let's see here. Who has a higher battle IQ, Itachi or Madara? So this was also another interesting question. It's tough to assess, I'd say, because we clearly have more feats for Itachi than Madara, as he was more involved in the actual story that we have come to know and love, considering Madara was dead, right? Clearly. However, the respect and lore built for Madara and the legends of him allow us to induce how his tangible and intangible traits are higher than almost any non-six-pass character. But now, if we're pinpointing intelligence, this is what I would say for that. I would give the nod to Itachi because of the simple fact that Madara doesn't even need to be a genius, having more power than anyone else in his era besides Hashirama. He didn't really need to utilize intelligence because he was vastly superior to everyone besides Hashirama himself. Itachi's arsenal in general is one where strategy and battle prowess is necessary, right? To catch someone in a genjutsu, to utilize the Amaterasu optimally, you need to have intelligence and you need to strategize, especially as he got older and sicker, right? So he had less chakra to deal with. Hence, I would simply say Itachi's arsenal and the fact that he has to strategize more than someone the caliber of Madara would put his intelligence above that, the likes of Madara. So that's what I would say. I would say he has a higher battle IQ than Madara, because Madara doesn't even need a higher battle IQ. So third scales above Prime Chiyo, I thought, with his sand, and Prime Chiyo scales to Hanzo, right? Well, I guess there's an inconsistency, because if that is stated, then the fact that Sasori, who beat the third, struggled with Chiyo and Sakura, kind of negates or puts that statement into question. So that's what I would say about that. I usually revere feats over statements, for the most part, with the right context in place. What if Pain gave one of his eyes to Naruto after dying? Naruto would get much more powerful, probably have the proper tools to deal with Sasuke and bring him back. A lot of things would go in Naruto's favor with the Rinnegan, considering also that he has the chakra reserves for it, which he certainly does, like Nagato, being an Uzumaki just like him. So, do you agree as soon as Naruto gets KCM, he never loses to Sasuke? No, I don't agree with that. I think with the right scenario and an infinite set of scenarios, there are scenarios where Sasuke would win. If he BFRs him, right, removes him from the battle with his, if we're assuming they have 6 pass powers, then he would simply remove him from the battleground and that's it. So there is scenarios where he could win. But I do scale Naruto above Sasuke to some arbitrary degree. They are relative nonetheless, but I do scale him above Sasuke. KCM beats MS, so does KCM2 beat MS. Pretty much. Slightly. Do you think adult Naruto can take on Kage by himself? I do. I do think he can. Fully replenished Prime Naruto would probably beat Kage, yes. With Baron mode, of course, he obliterates him. Oh shit! We have a goat in the house. Let me see if my soundboard's working, because that deserves a... Sorry, folks, it's coming, it's coming. Give it a second. Shout out to Sir Jeets for the donation, man. Now it's working. Shout out to the GOAT. You guys know the drill. I put it on the screen. Appreciate you, brother. And I shall answer your question in depth and in quick succession. Give me a second. Appreciate it. You're one of the ghosts, brother. You're always donating. I appreciate that. You definitely are a GOAT. That needs to be acknowledged. Give me a second here, folks. I must put this on the screen because that's what goats deserve. Let's see here, where is it? All right. Give me a second, folks. Scrolling currently. Let's see here, where is it? Here it is. All right. All right, folks, I'm putting a screen. Here it is. Appreciate you once again, brother. All right, so let's go ahead and read this question. I don't have a question, but mostly something to say. I managed to catch my evil thoughts and self-harm thoughts and write them down so I won't forget. I want to say thank you for being one of my motivations. Appreciate that, brother. Appreciate that. That actually means a lot, more than you know. And when it comes to evil thoughts and, you know, those kind of thoughts, to touch up on that because you are a GOAT and you have donated quite a bit over the last few streams, I would say this. The mind is like any other muscle, a muscle that needs to be conditioned. So unfortunately, to battle those kind of malevolent thoughts, since malevolence exists in us all, is that you have to condition your mind just like any other muscle, right? You have to train it to think positively, because if you let your mind just wander, then it is more susceptible to malevolent thoughts, which could lead to malevolent actions like self-harm, etc. So I'm not a psychologist or anything of that matter, of course not. But from what I've seen and from what I've seen empirically or from psychologists in general, they seem to claim that strengthening your mind is the best way to combat that, right? Because malevolence exists in us all, no matter who you are. You can be the most noble person on earth, the most strong-minded person on earth. We all have demons to tame. But the best way to combat those demons is constant retaliation against those demons, right? So there are different ways to cope with that and to strengthen your mind. Meditation, talking to someone that you trust truly, things like that. So certainly there is a way to combat it. Not to say that it's easy, because it certainly is not. It is certainly a pandemic in the Western world even, right? So that's what I would say. I appreciate that though, brother. You're a goat for that. All right. That deserves one more of these. Let's see if it's not lagging now. It's still lagging, sorry. The soundboard, I might have to re-implement it because it's been giving me issues. But one more of these for the GOAT, Sir Jeets. Appreciate that, brother. All right, continuing on. Pain at full power versus this all three Sannin. I would simply say Pain would defeat them all, excluding the Edo Tensei ability that Orochimaru possesses. He would defeat them all. Would it be easy? I don't know about that, but he has the hacks to end it, right? And especially if he's bloodlusted, he would definitely end it with even a Chubaku Tensei would be more than enough. They're not getting out of that. That would be the end of it. And he scales, as far as speed, AP, etc., superior to that of the Sannin. If you talk about Warrock or Orochimaru after absorbing Kabuto and, you know, a mentally amped Tsunade, there's a possibility that it could be interesting. A possibility, but it's kind of difficult to specifically scale Orochimaru because he kind of just stops doing anything after, you know, he is in a Warrock, and even now in Boruto, he hasn't done nothing. So I can't really scale him. But I would say Pain probably beats them. Any advice for staying positive? Against, like I said earlier, is training your mind. It's training your mind. Things like depression, things like all these mental illnesses that can be diagnosed from a medical professional. The best you could do is combat it. Now, to be fair, some people are just more genetically predisposed or have a unfortunate environment that they are currently dwelling in, which makes it much more difficult, right? So you have a more difficult path to a stronger mind than compared to someone who has, you know, a good environment and is not genetically predisposed to these kinds of diagnoses. So advice for staying positive is stay persistent, right? Because I heard a good quote, right, that discipline builds diamonds, right? And that's the truth. So persistence is key in almost anything, any aspect of life, from career to your mental health to anything. Persistence builds prosperity, and diamonds build, or discipline builds diamonds. So that's the best advice I could give for that. For depression, for anything. Sekitachi versus Pain. I lean towards Pain because Sekitachi's already, deteriorating physically, and Pain definitely has a chakra reserve advantage. As he hacks, Itachi's his tangibles have definitely decreased because of his illness, and Pain is Pain. He has dead bodies doing his bidding. So simply put, a fully replenished Pain most likely beats a Sekitachi. All right, but speaking of Akatsuki members, I have my ranking. Someone asked me to rank them. I've done a video of this quite a while ago. If you guys want to go look for it, it's in my Naruto videos playlist if you want to see like in-depth analysis. But this is my Akatsuki ranking currently. Number 1. Let's start from the bottom actually. Number 9 is Zetsu. Now this could change if you revere his feat against Jubito, where he stabs him in the back. Then he would be number 1. Clearly, it wouldn't be even a debate anymore. So you either have him at the bottom or the top, depending on how you interpret his feat against Jubito. Me personally, I think he just caught him off guard, and that he's nowhere near the top of the Akatsuki. That's my from my subjective lens. You could feel free to disagree. Number 8 would be Hidan. He's barely an Akatsuki level individual, right? Barely. I think we can all agree with that. Number 7. Now, I actually have a tie here because let me backtrack. I have Konan at number 8 tier as well, or above that of Hidan. She's higher though with prep time. All right, so with prep time she'd be higher, and I also have that on here as I get to it. After that, Kakuzu would scale above her. I think he scales above Konan and Hidan. Konan has no feats, at least impressive ones without prep time. Yeah, she has a prep time feat, but again, I'm scaling without prep time Konan. She got folded by Jiraiya relatively easily when he went into the Rain Village to stop Pain. Above Kakuzu, I would put Deidara. Now, people would say, why isn't Kakuzu above Deidara? Deidara dealt with a more powerful opponent and, a heavy Sasuke. I think heavy Sasuke scales above any version of Naruto during that in that exact point in the timeline. Right? Naruto didn't really close that gap until he got KCM, most likely, or arguably Sage Mode. Even that is not where he closed the gap because he admits inferiority when he sees him after the 5 Kage Summit. So, oh shit, another 20 from the GOAT. Let's get this soundboard working once again, brothers. Stop the fucking show. Give me a second, folks. Appreciate you, brother. Sir Jeets once again. Appreciate that. Let's go ahead and follow the procedure here. Put this on the screen as well. I'll continue. Let's see here. In quick succession. Give me a second, folks. Appreciate you, brother, once again, for always being one of the GOATs. Go ahead and put this on the screen, folks. Where is it? Here it is. There it is. Found it. Okay. All right. Why is it not? There it is. Okay. Let me go ahead and read this question. By the way, the next death battle is Vegito versus Gogeta. Who do you think will win? I think Vegito would win if they take Goku and Vegeta in recent DBS chapters into account. Yeah, now this is one of the million-dollar questions within the Dragon Ball fandom. Most definitely, right? 2 different fusions with the same hosts, I guess you could say, technically speaking. Empirically, it's tough to tell. I mean, Gogeta thrashed Broly, but then again, we never seen Vegito have a chance at Broly either. I personally also lean towards Vegito. I think it's probably the more optimal fusion, right? It's the more optimal fusion. They don't have to do the dance and things of that nature. And I'm under the notion, again, this is my own headcanon, that the earrings that are utilized allow for a better syncing of fusion. That's obviously my headcanon, but these revered earrings within the Dragon Ball universe are so revered for a reason. So I would lean towards Vegito as well. I think Gogeta is a utilized fusion when the Potara earrings aren't present. That's the rationale I would use for that. Again, it's not definitive, but that's my rationale for my own subjective lens, which is why I tend to put Vegito above the likes of Gogeta. But I do want to see where Death Battle takes this and what empirical evidence they'll extrapolate. You know how they do their breakdowns before the fights? I definitely got to check that one out. Most definitely. Alright. Healthy Itachi wins. Yes, I agree. Against Pain, yeah, I agree. Do you think Naruto in Baryon mode is the strongest person or third strongest person in the Boruto verse? I do feel like he's the third strongest or in the top 5. As of now, it's tough to tell. He's certainly below that, the likes of, I would assume, the most recently revealed Otsutsuki god Shibai. He probably scales below him. He's literally the father of jutsu and has the most optimal jutsu, which was Shin Jutsu, as specified by Amato. I would assume that he scales above that of Baryon mode Naruto, right? Because ninjutsu is a poor man's version of Shinjutsu, which the god Otsutsuki utilized heavily, according to Amato. So I would put him at the top. As far as the cyborgs, there isn't enough empirically for me to suggest that they're above Baryon mode Naruto, right? They don't have any feats yet. They have insane hacks abilities, but that's not enough for me to put them above Baryon mode Naruto. So I would put Baryon mode Naruto, as of now, currently second after the Otsutsuki god himself. For now, unless the cyborgs do something gargantuously impressive, then my ranking would change quickly. As of now, I'd put him right below the Otsutsuki god himself. So for now. Alright, so continuing with my ranking. So I had Kakuzu, and I had Datara above him. The reason I have Datara above him, he beat a more impressive and powerful opponent, and not beat him. He nearly beat a more impressive opponent in Hebi Sasuke. Right, Hebi Sasuke had to literally utilize his summoning to escape his death. Right, so there's that. And now Kakuzu had trouble swapping hands with Kakashi. I would say they were within the same weight class. And Kakashi admits relativity to Rasen Shuriken Naruto, who certainly isn't the level of Hebi Sasuke. So, simply put, Datara scales above Kakuzu because of that reason. Alright, so above Datara, Sasori. Datara admitted blatant inferiority to Sasori, so that's all I have to say about that. Above Sasori, I'd have Prep Time Konan. Right, so this is the other version of Konan. With Prep Time, she's arguably top 5 here. So I would put Prep Time Konan above that of Kakuzu. Sasori. And then Kisame would be 4th. He would be 4th. He has insane feats against a perfect Jinchuriki. Right, he bodied a perfect Jinchuriki in Killer B, who was the strongest at the time out of all Jinchurikis at that time, right, until Naruto got KCM. So Kisame has the feats to put him in the top 4. Then Pain, obviously Pain is Pain. Then Itachi, because we saw Edo Itachi versus Edo Nagato, and we saw who was triumphant there. Right, Kishimoto was clearly trying to imply something. And then Obito would be the strongest. I think we can all agree with that one particularly. Seth dropped another Death Note vid. I gotta check that out. Yeah, I have seen that he dropped one. He's back, which is good. Yagura versus Sasori. I think Yagura was, the 2-tailed Jinchuriki, if I'm not mistaken? I believe so. Let me just double check real quick. Oh no, that's the 4-tail. So the 4-tail is a tough one to kind of scale here. I know I guess it's filler, but Itachi and his old partner, I think it's Juzo or some of that along those lines is his name, had to battle her or him, and Itachi had to evade and escape. Again, I think it's like semi-filler or non-canon entirely. As far as their war arc feat, right? Yagura's war arc feat, he did something impressive against KCM Naruto. That's not enough for me to definitively scale him. But since the prerequisite of an Akatsuki member is to be able to take down, tailed beast and Chirikis, I would assume Sasori would beat Yagura. That's what I would say, most likely. From the limited empirical evidence that I know. I know a prerequisite of being an Akatsuki member is being able to hunt down Jinchurikis. So, that's what I would say about that. Alright, so this is the last pre-anime livestream question here. Feel free to keep asking questions, folks. And thanks again for the donations. Sir Jeets, your goat. Any donations are appreciated. And all donations in other streams I appreciate as well. Greatly appreciated. So someone asked, have you ever looked into Menma's scaling? Menma's scaling, which is the antithesis of Naruto, right? In some way. There's certainly a dichotomy between Naruto and Menma. Admittedly, I haven't really looked into Menma because the movie's non-canon. But however, this is what I would say. I know he countered Perfect Sage Mode Naruto. He imprisoned Tsunade and Minato with some sort of barrier. and a bloodlusted, unhinged version of Naruto who befriended the dark side of the Nine Tails would certainly be a huge issue for almost anyone in the verse that's not a 6-pass tier character. I think you would need a top-of-the-line shinobi, such as Hashirama or Madara, to give him a problem. He is a problem. A very powerful individual. So if he was canonical, he'd be a huge threat to the shinobi world, and up until 6-pass tier characters make their appearance. Can Jubito beat 8th Gate Might guy with no Night guy? I would say most likely not, because Might guy with Night guy nearly killed Jubidar, who is significantly stronger than Jubito. So I would say if he were to hit him, even without Night guy, there's a possibility he could kill him. So I'm at work. I just caught your live stream. What is your Akatsuki ranking? I'll go ahead and answer it real quick. So Zetsu's at the bottom, unless you presuppose that he is stronger than Madara because he killed him at the end, which I don't. So Zetsu's at the bottom. Then Hidan. Then Konan without prep time, which scale above him. Without prep time, which is why she's so low. Kakuzu above that. Deidara above that. Sasori above that. Konan with prep time above that. Kisame above that. Pain above that. Itachi above that. And then Obito above that. That would be my scaling for that. Alright, folks, those are all my pre-livestream anime questions, so feel free to keep asking anime questions. And while you guys do that, I'll be delving into the IRL questions that I got, which are pretty interesting as well. And any questions you have in general. It doesn't have to be anime, it can be IRL as well, and I'll answer those as well. Alright, so the first question is political, but I find politics interesting. Do you think the political structure of today compared to America's initial start is different? There used to be nearly a dozen parties back then, but now whittled down to 2. Alright, so this is my take on the political structure of America now in today's modern society. The Founding Fathers, right, obviously intended to create a state of uncensored open discourse and a state of majority rule, right, democracy, a republic, I guess you could say technically, which is what the USA is classified as. However, ironically, with modern technology and the internet, there are now echo chambers led by powerful corporations that pick and choose which ideologies can survive and which are silenced. We all know of this. We've all seen it with our own eyes. This clearly is the antithesis of the Founding Fathers' intentions, so America is vastly different than what the Founding Fathers at least intended it to be. However, of course, they couldn't have predicted the internet. That was, they were around hundreds of years ago. So, like I've said in the past, over the last 5 to 10 years, logic has been a dying entity, unfortunately, and it continues to be, with the appeal to emotion being a rising entity, which is fallacious logic, which is a dangerous precedent. Now, as far as the political parties themselves, the reason that we have a 2-party system is because these parties successfully pinpointed the most, I guess, prioritized values of the average American citizen, which is why they're the dominant parties in today's government and political, I guess, competitions. So, in layman's terms, America is much different than what it was at the beginning. All right, folks, continuing on, unless you guys have any questions. Feel free to ask any and all, anime or IRL, controversial, conspiracy, whatever. Any and all questions. And make sure to hit the like button if you haven't already, folks. Gets us up in the algorithm. Let's try to consistently get to 20, 30 plus likes on these. It gets us higher in the algorithm, and it results in more interactive discussions because more people join, more people see. So yeah. All right, so while you guys ask questions, another question that was asked was, how were the pyramids constructed in your opinion? How were the pyramids of Egypt constructed in your opinion? Evidence shows that they were built from limestone that originated an absurd distance away, and even the pyramids were built from top down even. Okay, so this is what I would say. I'm sort of a realist on these kinds of things. I actually tend to believe that theories from most historians, which is along the lines of a massive human effort to create these wonders of the modern world, right, the pyramids. Statistically speaking, I would say the chances of divine intervention or outside intervention would be lower than a massive human effort, where intricate and complex geometric and architectural techniques were utilized. I think we just underestimate the human race's ability to innovate, and create. I mean, look at what we did in the last 20 years. We've built an insane amount of traction and built some amazing inventions that allow us to communicate on a global scale instantaneously, right? So obviously the pyramid physically is a massive undertaking, and obviously technology wasn't what it is today. Techniques weren't as advanced as they are today, but I don't underestimate the human mind and the human effort. So I saw a free-for-all with Itachi, Minato, and Guy. I believe that Guy gets stomped if he doesn't go gate of death immediately. Yeah, that would be the case. He would not stand a chance unless he used 8 gates against those two. Certainly. Alright, folks, continue to ask questions, and I'll keep answering these. Alright, so Kanye for president in 2024. Let's speak on Kanye, man, because Kanye has been unraveling. He's been spiraling out of control from a mental health issue, in my opinion. Kanye is certainly someone I ain't worried for, as it is clear he is spiraling out of control, right? Clearly he is. He's saying some absurd shit. This is ridiculous. His mental health is clearly deteriorating, with him recently on Alex Jones' show advocating the Nazi party and Hitler himself. That's fucking insane, man. No one's going to back that up. Not even the most extreme right-wing person is going to back that shit up. The Nazi party and Hitler is an objectively malevolent and detrimental force to the human race. There's no ands, ifs, or buts about it. It is clear as fucking day that Hitler was one of the most harmful individuals in human history. One of the most malevolent individuals in human history, with a delusional perspective of reality and of the world. Right? It's clear as day. There is no way to defend him. There is not. No way. Right? There literally isn't a way. So Kanye is literally losing his mind. Clearly. Alright, folks. I believe that is all my questions. So feel free to keep asking questions here. All my pre-live stream questions, I think I've answered them all if I'm not mistaken. Kanye died the day his mom died. That's a good theory. Maybe his mom kept him above water, mentally speaking. That's a good theory. He has certainly deteriorated over the last 4 years. Gotten worse and worse and worse, and his takes have gotten worse and worse and more, I would say, delusional as well. It's pretty sad to see. Now, as you guys ask questions, let me see if I did miss a question or not. Oh, actually, I did miss one. All right, so someone asked, what does awakening your third eye mean to you? What does the third eye mean to you? Is it figurative or not, in your opinion? All right, so this is an interesting question. So this is my take on it from my own subjective lens. Excuse me. I believe there are intangible dimensions that are beyond our perception in a literal sense that will only be discovered through breakthroughs in the understanding of quantum physics and in the understanding of fundamental forces of our universe as we learn more and more. That's my perspective. Now, as far as our third eye, which is usually correlated with psychedelics, that's when people bring up the third eye. I tend to be a realist and simply point out that the certain parts of our brain that aren't activated on a normal day basis are what allow us to see these entities and allow us to think in a different way from what we typically think, right? Like the removal of ego, I think, is simply because of your brain operating in a different way than it typically does because of the psychedelics. I don't think it's divine intervention or divine enlightenment, in my opinion. I think it's more so just your brain operating in a different manner because of the psychedelics. It's a side effect of the psychedelics. Now, I think our true third eye, or that humanity's true third eye, is the one known as our observational eye of known and unknown aspects of our universe. I think that's the true third eye that we have on a humanity, on a human race scale. Right? So that's literal, right? As we discover more things, that's a literal third eye that humanity has. Okay, let's see here. That was my last question, so I'll answer your guys' questions. What if Lil Wayne didn't co-sign Drake? Drake has talent, and I think he still would have blown up somehow. That guy's talent would have not gone unnoticed. The greats, right? The greats in the game of music are going to be discovered one way or the other. Lil Wayne probably would have regretted it. That's what I would say. If MS Sasuke switched roles with Naruto and had to defend the village, would he be able to beat Pain? MS Sasuke? Well, I would say he wouldn't, most likely. I think even 5 Kage-sama Sasuke would most likely lose to Pain. I do. And Sage Mode Naruto is inferior to 5 Kage-sama Sasuke. So in short, I think he would lose. Because he wouldn't have the Nine Tails backing him up, or he wouldn't get enraged and get a Nine Tails amp like Naruto. That's the only reason why Naruto succeeded, was because of the Nine Tails. Pain beat Naruto. He lost to the Nine Tails. That's what he lost to. And that's what allowed Naruto to get the upper hand at the very end when Nagato was fatigued already because of the Nine Tails intervention. So I would say Sasuke would lose. What's your favorite Titan fight? Oh, there's so many. In Attack on Titan? I think the one I was personally most hyped for and hyped during might have been, let's see, I'm trying to think which one was the best. Maybe the Armored Titan versus Eren. That was lit. Like the first one, when they're searching the walls, and I think the Armored Titan's within the wall itself or something like that, and they fight. It's been a while since I've seen it, but that was very, very entertaining. Very entertaining. Do you believe in witchcraft, black magic, tarot? I believe there are some things that are beyond, our typical common understanding that exist. I do think, but is it as dramatic as movies portray it or things of that nature? No, but I do think they exist. I do think so. Yeah. What if drugs were governed and kept away from society? Simply put, addiction wouldn't exist. However, medication wouldn't exist. Because even if, let's say, theoretically, you were able to keep off all the illegal substances from the streets, simply put, people would use the illegal substances to their advantage. They would use medication, painkillers, oxy, whatever the case may be, and there would be addiction anyway. So the presence of drugs is inevitable because drugs do have a beneficial aspect, right? When they actually help someone's health, if they have an illness or something of that nature. Drugs are necessary. So either way, there would be addiction. There would probably be an opioid pandemic anyway. And criminals with malevolent minds would still sell these things, such as the cartel. Right? So if it was completely kept away, more people would be dying, or more people would be suffering from a physical standpoint because medication wouldn't be available. Simply put. Alright, would Naruto with all the tailed beasts defeat Goku before Saiyan era with all the tailed beasts? So if he was a hypothetical 10 tails Jinchuriki? Saiyan era Goku? Before the Saiyan era? Probably. Let's say Naruto gets a increase in power from how strong he was during his prime, which is above that of the likes of planet level easily. He probably would beat that Goku. Yeah. Most likely would. He would scale above him considerably. Alright, folks, feel free to keep asking questions. Any and all. I believe I have answered all my pre-live streams, so I simply will answer yours now. Any questions at all? Appreciate all the donations, by the way, and donations do prioritize your question. Appreciate all the donations. Any and all questions, folks? And make sure to hit the like button, by the way, too. It gets us up on the algorithm as well. See here. White Mask Obito with tailed beasts versus alive Minato. Considering Minato struggled and admitted a game of inches, or even less than that, against a teenage Obito, I would say White Mask Obito with tailed beasts would possibly be alive Minato, more than likely. He struggled with a teenage Obito, right? And now we have a White Mask Obito, so we have the Rinnegan Amp amping all his traits, his tangible traits, and we have the tailed beasts aiding him under his control. Simply put, Obito could scale above Minato in speed, most likely, especially with the Rinnegan. So he would most likely defeat a live Minato. For sure. Do you believe in the education system? I would say there's parts that I agree with and there's parts that I don't. Honestly, in my opinion, from my own subjective lens, I think there should be rules put in place for professors and teachers alike to remove their opinions from the criteria, right, or from the agenda of teaching. Right? So the agenda that is set in stone for either grade school kids or, adult college students should include a removal of opinion. Obviously, you can almost not avoid it in certain discussions, like a philosophical discussion. Obviously, opinions are going to come up. But political science majors, things of that nature, they should remove their opinions entirely. Your job isn't to indoctrinate. Your job is to teach. And the reality is, in colleges, when it comes to these abstract concepts like politics and philosophy, there's a lot of indoctrination rather than education taking place, which is dangerous. Dangerous precedent. And that's why I say logic is a dying entity. People are appealing more emotionally than logically, which is very dangerous and fallacious. That's how you have delusional and ignorant members of society coming into the workforce, because they're delusional. They're indoctrinated by bullshit. So, who is your favorite tailed beast besides Kurama in terms of overall likability and aesthetics? Out of the tailed beast besides Kurama, maybe Son Goku. The name, the look, King Kong look. The release that he has. I believe it's lava release, which is dope. I like him the most besides Kurama, aesthetically and ability-wise as well. What about Edo Minato? Edo Minato has access to KCM mode, so he would foderize White Mask Obito. Most likely foderize him. I think Minato and base would lose to White Mask Obito, but I don't think that Bijou should be a problem to Minato, not even the Jinchuriki. It would be a hassle, and it would make it more difficult than just White Mask Obito alone, for sure. Fall? What fall? I'm assuming you mean the title, the fall of Kanye. He's definitely fallen from grace because of his deteriorating mental health. So that's what I mean by the fall. But as you guys ask more questions, I guess I wanted to give an update on my Bleach journey. I'm about 70% done. I'm on the part where I believe Aizen and his company are going to try and destroy the world of the living for their own purposes, and the Soul Society is prepared for them. They got Yamamoto and a few other captains and lieutenants in place to battle him. Aizen is one of my most favorite characters, I think, in all anime at this point. He never shows a face of concern, almost. He never does, at least until this point in time where I am currently. He's always calm and collected, like he knows he has the upper hand. And I think there's something polarizing about that, which is why Aizen is up there for me as far as characters. As you can tell from the screen, Kenpachi, one of the most coldest characters I've seen. He currently, I saw him defeat the 5th seed of Rancor, right, when they went to their realm and dealt with their Rancors. And, his ability to use Kido with 2 hands and destroy the 5th seed of Rancor was pretty impressive. His lust for battle is very Saiyan-like, I'd say. All right, maybe there's a nod to the Saiyans, which is why they made Kenpachi the way he is. Kenpachi is one of my favorites as well. His lust for battle and his willingness to take damage is pretty entertaining and polarizing. Bleach is definitely heating up and is definitely improving. I've skipped all filler because I just don't care for it. That's what I did for Naruto as well. I didn't really care for it. Have you watched Blue Lock? No, I don't think I've ever even heard of it, to be quite honest. Feel free to keep asking questions, folks. But yeah, as far as the power scaling aspect of Bleach, it's a little wonky, right? Because Kenpachi stalemated early Ichigo in the Soul Society. Yet, he beats a 5th seed of Rancor who Ichigo couldn't even fuck with. Now, to be fair, Ichigo was fatigued because he battled Grimmjow, right? And it was a pretty tough battle for him, who was, I believe, the 6-seater Rancor. Right, so that was tough. And he took a ass whooping from Ulukora, right? I believe the 4-seat, when he blasted him and he fucking destroyed him. So he was fatigued, but he couldn't deal with the 5th-seater Rancor, yet Kenpachi beats him, right? Even though he stalemated or arguably lost to early Ichigo in the Soul Society. Now, some people could counter me and say, well, Ichigo is in the Soul Society, and there is something stated that within the Soul Society, Soul Reapers reach their optimal levels. Now, that's ambiguous to me. Maybe that's a possibility as to why Kenpachi did better, because Ichigo is just weaker in that realm than he is in the Soul Society, possibly. So, do you like creepypastas or true crime content? I do. I do like, seeing the exploration of criminal minds. It is quite intriguing. Creepypastas as well. They're just fun to think about and think of the possible, I guess you could say, supernatural aspects of our universe that are possible. So, one thing I will say, though, for me personally, I can't take too much, crime-based content, because I think a little too much is too much for me. I kind of want to stick to more noble things. But I do like looking at them once in a while, like the Jeffrey Dahmer thing, or all these other documentaries of serial killers. It's interesting for sure. It just illuminates the pieces of shit that they were, right, and the conflicts that they had in their own minds. Last book you read? The last book I read, I guess ebooks would count, was a textbook for college. I don't know if that counts, but I was reading it. Did you get weary when Levi was scared of his adoptive father figure? Oh, that was a very interesting point in time. Never cracked against the Titans, but was visually worried about him. Maybe because he had an emotional attachment to the guy, right? Having a history with this guy. And the Titans were just basically mindless beasts that he had no trouble cutting down. Or maybe sometimes he was even bloodlusted, like it was against the Beast Titan, when the Beast Titan destroyed, the fucking entire division that they had to deal with him. And he was like, fuck this, I'm taking him down myself. All right, so there was no emotional attachment to them. But to this guy there was, which is why maybe he was somewhat mentally nerfed, and why his father figure had some success against him when they battled. Let's see here. That's because Kenpachi's a bit special. After you watch this, go straight to the Korean Pajama and you'll see why. I see. Kenpachi is a special person, that's for sure. He's a special individual. One of my favorite characters, for sure. No doubt about it. Have you ever read Rich Dad, Poor Dad? I have not. What is your ethnicity? I am half Hispanic and half Native American, so half and half. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is great. Do you have other recommendations? Alright, folks, keep asking questions. Now, to continue on my Bleach power scaling discussion, it is a little inconsistent in general. Either that, or I would simply say that the jump in power is quick. All right, Ichigo had trouble with a outcast Rancor, and then all of a sudden he's fucking with the 6-seat Rancor in Grimmjow. Obviously, there's mental amps taking place, but it is quite quick. That's what I would say, compared to something like Naruto or Dragon Ball. Right, the jump in power scaling is quick. It's like, boom, he's here. Next day, he's here fighting this guy who's a higher rank. So, have you had your way of interpretation of Naruto change any time recently, like how you interpret a statement or how you see a feat? I would say most definitely. Now, to try to pinpoint one, I was under the impression that KCM2 Naruto used to beat Hashirama, but I have changed that stance. I don't think KCM2 Naruto surpasses Hashirama, at least not even debatably, until he gets KCM2 Sage Mode. Maybe at that point he has a chance. But I used to think that KCM2 before the Sage Mode amp would be Hashirama, but that has changed. I think empirically there's enough to suggest Hashirama would be KCM2. And now that's my take on it. That's just one example. There's probably other ones as well. The Chunin exam matchups, I think, as well, have changed over time for me. There's a few things. It was a shame Annie wasn't brought back in any significant way after season 1. Annie was special, yeah. Her ability to harden herself with her diamond skin or whatever the case was actually pretty interesting. One of my favorite characters, for sure. And I definitely would have liked to see more of her. But to be honest, Attack on Titan botched the ending. I think it could have been done better. At least the anime-wise. Could have been done better, in my opinion. But yeah. Naruto vs. Ichigo, because Seth won't give it to us. Currently, it's hard to scale these Bleach characters because it's hard to determine their AP. It really is. Because you don't really see them destroying large bodies of land so that I could make a correlation as to where they scale. I would say prime adult Naruto would beat the Ichigo that I'm currently familiar with currently. Maybe that'll change when I conclude Bleach entirely. But right now, I'd say Naruto. For now. I haven't seen Ichigo's full capabilities yet, so. Alright, folks, feel free to keep asking questions here. And make sure to hit the like button as well. Gets us up in the algorithm. The more likes, the more eyeballs, and possibly the more interactions in future streams as well. Once again, thanks for all the donations, folks. You guys are goats. Any and all questions, folks. Any and all. Would you put your money? Who would you put your money on? KC2 Sage Mode, Naruto, or Hashirama? I would lean towards Naruto because his speed is at least competitive enough, and his AP as well, to press Jubito. I think that was a Jubito at that point in time that was as stable as he was going to get. Right? Admittedly, he did have Sasuke's help, but Hashirama admits blatant inferiority to Jubito, and because of that, KCM2 Sage Mode Naruto would compete with Hashirama and arguably triumph over Hashirama. That's what I would say. I think his speed would be the X factor here. I think Hashirama would have trouble keeping up. Even that's contentious, to be honest, but I'd put my money on Naruto, that version of him specifically. Alright, folks, any and all questions? We can make it controversial, be anime, IRL, whatever the case may be. Do you agree Sage Hashirama beats any version of Minato? Even KCM? I agree Sage Hashirama beats any alive version for sure. As far as Edo, it's tough. It's tough to assess. Now, I would lean towards Hashirama still beating KCM Minato. But a theoretical KCM Sage Mode Minato might give Hashirama some problems. If we presuppose that the KCM Minato uses is faster than the KCM Naruto uses, which you could make the case, then it's possible that Minato could beat Sage Hashirama. It's very ambiguous and contentious, and I think there's arguments for both sides. How far do you think Jubito would get in Boruto if he didn't face against Naruto or Sasuke? Now, he would lose to a hypothetical 8 Gates Rock Lee. He would lose to that. He would lose to Sakura, most likely as well, if Sakura is serious, especially if she's bloodlusted. He would probably beat the rest of the Jonin, like Choji and shit like that. He'd probably beat most of them, Sai and all those guys. He wouldn't beat, arguably, he wouldn't beat any of the current Kage, because they have feats against Otsutsuki who are stronger than Jubito by far. So, at best, he beats the Jonin within Konoha until Naruto and Sasuke and Sakura and Rock Lee, probably. And if he were to be beat up against the Gaara, he would lose to any of the inners, most likely. Any of the inners would beat his ass. And some of the outers, I guess you could say, might have a chance against him too. It's possible, theoretically. 6-pass Kakashi versus a hypothetical 6-pass Minato. Now, Kakashi versus Minato both with 6-pass powers. It's tough to assess, but the way I would look at this from my lens is they have their base forms, right? And then they have the 6-pass added on top of that. I just think because of that reason, Minato would scale above that of Kakashi. I do think that would be the case if he gets 6-pass powers. Let's say theoretically they get the same amount of 6-pass chalk or whatever the case may be. Minato would scale above Kakashi, I would say. Especially, most definitely speed. It's ambiguous and damn near inconclusive, but Minato scaling above base Kakashi allows me to deduce that 6-pass Minato would scale above 6-pass Kakashi. Seidenmo Naruto versus Danzo. Danzo was thoroughly thrashed by 5 Kage-sama Sasuke. I tend to believe Seidenmo Naruto would do something similar. He would just keep killing Danzo over and over, similarly to how Sasuke did. So I would lean towards Naruto. Danzo is not as strong as people think, even with the eyes. He just has more lives. He's basically just a cat. 9 lives. Do you think Kakashi really surpassed Minato? DMS Kakashi? Absolutely did. War Kakashi? Possibly. DMS Kakashi surpassed everybody besides Kaguya. At that point in time, I should say. Kamui might destroy Minato. If the speed is sufficient in doing so, yes. Which we can't prove one way or the other because it's hypothetical. How high up in power would Boruto era Kakashi be if he kept his DMS? Shit. If he kept it, I think there would be a point where Naruto and Sasuke surpass him. He would be up there. He'd be above Sakura. I don't think he'd beat Momoshiki one-on-one. I don't think that'd be the case. He would be like Gaara level. Possibly like an inner Gaara, possibly. Like a low-tier inner Gaara level. Around there. That's what I would say if I had to put my finger on it. Why did Naruto use summoning against Sasuke in the part 1 versus Sasuke? Oh, in the part 1. Okay. Maybe it just wasn't on his mind, not in character, but I do see that being a question. Like, why didn't he use it? Why didn't he summon Gamabunta? It gave him great success against Gaara when Gaara is using the One Tail. So why didn't he use it against Sasuke, who was giving him a hard time? It's definitely a question that needs to be asked. Maybe just because of a convenient storytelling, they wanted to give a more polarizing story between those two alone. Right, Kishimoto wanted to stick to those two guys only. It makes sense, right? It's Sasuke versus Naruto. They want to keep it that way. That's what I would say. But, right, in the real world, if you have that kind of ability, that's something you would want to use against someone giving you a hard time. So, I do see that. But the narrative being told and the way they wanted it to be told is probably why he wasn't summoned. What are your thoughts on Bardock's wish? Does it change Goku's passive character, or is it a father on the verge of death, wishing his sons to live well? It's probably a combination of both. He always has Goku's best intentions of heart, clearly, right? 6-pass meaning DMS Kakashi. Yeah, Minato versus DMS Kakashi, if they both have 6-pass powers, I still lean towards Minato. Again, can't prove it, but from my subjective lens, yes. Minato did counter Kamui the first time he ever came against it, and triumphed over it, right? He triumphed over it. Now, an argument you can make against me is, well, having both Kamui, according to, I believe it was Obito or Kakashi, no, excuse me, it was Jubidara. It doubles the Kamui times speed. It doubles the time of the Kamui, hence there's a possibility that that gap in speed would close, right? And maybe DMS Kakashi would be faster than Minato because of the double amplification in speed compared to one eye, which is what Minato faced. He faced an individual with one eye, not both. So maybe that will close the gap and actually make Obito faster than Minato. That is an argument you could use as well. Controversial question, but do you agree that prostitution should be legal in safe working environment? I think grown adults should be able to do whatever they want. So I don't see the problem with it. Now, my own emotional appeal to it isn't a good one. I think it is basically kind of selling your soul in a way, in my opinion. You're literally selling your body for some change. You're doing something for some change. That's the way I look at it. I disagree with it, but my appeal to emotion shouldn't take away someone's right to make a living. So I would say, why not? Why not? It's on them if they want to do it. The repercussions that come with that is on them if they want to be fucking prostitutes. Then they should have the right to do it. It shouldn't be taken away from them. Adults should have the right. I don't see a problem. Even though, value-wise, I think is a bad thing. Do you think Kakashi surpasses Minato before DMS? Possibly, if you revere his fight against Obito in the Kamui dimension, right, with Obito having a Rinnegan, and you interpret it a certain way, you could scale Kakashi above Minato. Right, he has a Rinnegan and he has his Sharingan, and they're swapping hands competitively. Right, but then again, I would counter that and just simply say Obito was holding back, and he wanted to get hit in the heart to remove the seal, I believe, or some of that nature that Madara had on him. So, in my estimation, no, he didn't ever surpass Minato at all until DMS. Hokage Minato versus White Mask Obito. He struggled against him at 14. Do you think Obito wins? Yes, that Obito would beat him. He has the Rinnegan amplification. He has the Rinnegan hacks, theoretically. And Minato doesn't have the AP to ever break out of those. So if he has superior speed and hacks, he gets Chubaku Tensei Alpha in time, and Minato's fucked. He'd have to keep teleporting. Eventually he'd catch him, because he'd be faster. He was already almost as fast at 14. So imagine now with Rinnegan amplification. So, if Kakashi caught up to Naruto and Sasuke during their final battle in Part 1, how would he handle the situation? Probably similar to how he handled it against how he handled it outside the hospital, right, when Sasuke and Naruto were about to clash with their Rasengan and Chidori respectively. Only it would be much harder, right, because they're amped. Naruto has a QB amp and Sasuke has a curse mark. It wouldn't be as easy as just catching their hands and throwing their asses. He'd probably have to talk to them, or actually, get serious and really try to stop them. Maybe fight them both off or something. It certainly wouldn't most likely end the way it did. I would say he would stop the fight, and he has a special place in Sasuke's, I would say, heart to some extent. Right, he trained Sasuke for the Chunin exams. Sasuke seems to have some understanding. Right, especially considering that one speech he gave Sasuke when Sasuke said, "How would you feel if everyone you cared about is dead?" He said, "Too late, it already happened." So they have some, relatability going on there. Maybe he could talk Sasuke down theoretically, and maybe just bring him back. I think that would be very possible, not outside the realm of possibility. And I think that would be the most possible outcome. Maybe Sasuke says "fuck you" and just dips. That could be a possibility too. But I think the former is more likely than the latter. Do you think with time Momoshiki will surpass Ishiki in the Boruto series? Momoshiki himself? No. But, Boruto with Momoshiki within him? Yes, I do think he will surpass Ishiki, and I think Kawaki with the synthetic karma that Amato engineered for him will also surpass Ishiki. And I think they're going to be the strongest, just like Sasuke and Naruto was when they surpassed everybody. They surpassed Hashirama and Madara. They surpassed everybody. It's the same kind of aspect, I would say, in my estimation. Obito was not using the Rinnegan, though, and he did not even use Minato Sharingan. Plus, Obito was holding back. Yeah, that's what I would say. The argument is he is holding back. Hence, Kakashi didn't surpass Minato, right? He was holding back. Do you think Edo Madara could beat Casey and Minato? Depends what Edo. If it's the one that fought the 5 Kage, it's a possibility he doesn't. It's a possibility he doesn't. If you want to classify Minato's speed in a certain light. If you take this in a linear fashion and apply a linear trend to KCM and simply say Naruto was slower than Minato before the KCM. With KCM, he passed Minato. Hokage Minato was already this fast, so he has the KCM amp, and if we presuppose that the amplification is equivalent for Naruto and and Minato, then he would be faster than Madara probably to some degree, and probably would beat him. But if we don't presuppose that, which I wouldn't, I don't think it's a linear thing, and I don't think the amplification is equivalent, actually. I would say he wouldn't beat Madara. So the narrative doesn't imply Minato gets just tremendous, this tremendous increase in speed. It doesn't imply that at all. So I would say Edo Madara would probably beat him. And if we're talking about later Edo versions where he has, blind Sage mode or he gets the Rinnegan, he's gonna have some real trouble. So I don't even think Kakashi graded both Kyuubi Naruto and Kurosama Sasuke for the Rinnegan. Yeah, that's probably unlikely. They're much more powerful. The AP and the speed, the velocity is much higher than it was outside the hospital. I doubt he'd be able to do that. It would probably greatly harm him if he tried that. Greatly. Do you agree with Six's take that Minato's pain is not fair fights and Minato would stop pain? I do agree with Six. I do think Minato would beat Pain. I do think that. Minato basically beats all of the Akatsuki one-on-one besides probably White Mask Obito and Jubito, of course. One-on-one, he probably beats them all. Itachi, Pain, Obito, Kisame, you name it. What's going on, Nyo? Thanks for coming in. Again, folks, donations are prioritized, so any donations are appreciated. Playing a soundboard here, but it lags too much. There we go. Thanks again for the donations, folks. You guys are goats. And once again, if you haven't already and you just came in, make sure to hit the like button if you're watching the recording or live and just came in. Make sure to hit that. Appreciate it. Alright, folks, continue to ask questions. Thanks for all the questions. They're very good ones, by the way. Any and all questions are welcomed. Who would you say suffered from the most mental damage in Naruto? That's a good question. The most mental damage. Let's think about this. Overall, it's tough. It's tough. Gaara, part 1, you could easily say he's up there. That specific period of time was a lot of mental anguish, and it's clear as day. Naruto, early Naruto had great mental anguish to the point where he almost gave up. That's a guy that experienced great mental anguish. Kakashi, when he lost Rin and fucking Obito, great mental anguish. But the person who suffered the most, it's easy to say Naruto, right? Itachi's up there as well. I would probably say Itachi, because think about it this way, rationally. He had to make possibly the hardest choice in Naruto history, having to choose his clan or his village. He had to make that choice. He had no fucking choice. He had to decide, what the fuck am I going to do? The power's in my hands. Then, right, he makes the tough decision of killing his own fucking parents in front of his own eyes. He slaughters both of them. Then he has to pretend that he's this malevolent being and have the person he cares for the most hate his fucking guts. Hate him. His whole fucking teenage life, he fucking despises him. And then he fights his own brother. He has no choice. He's like, alright, I'm going to have to make this believable. So I'm going to have to fight Sasuke and make it believable and keep him hating me as much as I hate this, because it has to be this way. So from his teenage years up until his death, complete mental anguish. Obviously he's stoic. Right? He was stoic in his approach, which just shows his nobility, but he was suffering the whole fucking time. So, what's your favorite non-shonen anime manga? I'm not quite sure, because most of the ones I'm familiar with are shonen. So I'll have to get back to you on that. Orange Mask Obito and Sekitachi versus Minato. How do you think it goes? Maybe Minato flees? There's several strategies that these guys could implement. That's even if they have the speed to do so, which is ambiguous. You could argue that an adult Obito is, more prepared, is more trained with the Kamui, can use it to an optimal level, implying an increase in speed because he's used it so many fucking times at this point as now being an adult. So if the speed gap is relative, right? It's considerably small in their relative speed. Then Obito and Itachi could strategize a way to catch Minato, particularly with either the Kamui dimension or Itachi's Tsukuyomi. There's a possibility, and there is a possibility that they would beat him if you presuppose that Obito's speed is relative to that of Minato's. So yeah, I would say there's a possibility. From my lens, though, I would say the most possible scenario is Minato being too fast for them and just taking them out because of the difference in speed. That's what I would say from my own lens. Can't you make an argument for a live Minato beating White Mask Obito with tailed beasts? Could I make an argument? Let's see. You could say this. This is an argument you could use for Minato. Obito is preoccupied controlling all the tailed beasts simultaneously. There is evidence empirically that they're struggling. They're tugging on the chain that he's controlling them with. Hence, Minato is using a considerable amount of power to control them, which lowers his other tangible traits, such as his speed, his AP, things of that nature, because he's seeping so much chakra into this. He even admits that the Rinnegan's extremely heavy on his chakra reserves, let alone, on top of that, he's trying to control 6-tailed beasts simultaneously. So you can imply, well, his speed, his strength, all of that would be diminished due to the fact that he's struggling to keep control of these Jinchuriki. Hence, Minato's speed would be superior to his, and he would slice his throat because he's faster than him. And Obito's traits are decreased because of the struggle he's having. So that's an argument you could make for Minato. Again, it's contentious, it's ambiguous, but it's a valid enough argument to have your opponent have to come up with a counter. So, your favorite current Bankai release so far? That's a good question. I kind of like Byakuya. That shit is cold. He has like the infinite knives come at you. It was super cold when he fought one of the Arankars recently. He fought them, and he flexed on him. He said, "This isn't an issue. There's a skill gap here, and I'm going to foderize you," and he did. Right? At first, the Arankar was very confident. He's like, "You're not going to beat me," and Byakuya was like, "Okay, we'll see." And he used his Bankai to finish the battle. It was pretty fucking impressive. I think his Bankai is fucking cold. I think Byakuya is fucking cold. Character, period. He's up there with like Kenpachi and Aizen in my book, personally. So, why didn't we see Minato use Sage Mode in his fight against Yellow Mask Obito? Well, the reason he didn't use it, right, we can make a rational induction here and go based off the observation and statement he made in the war arc when he said, "I'm not a very good Sage Mode user." People will say, well, he used it instantaneously. But we can make a rational inductive argument and say, well, if it was so effortless for him and he could use it so optimally, then why wouldn't he use it in a battle where he admitted was a game of inches, where it's going to come down to who hits who first? Why wouldn't he use Sage Mode, which is known to amplify reaction times? The only rational reason you can come up with is, simply put, he's not that good at it and that it would be possibly detrimental to the outcome of the fight. Right? So, in short, he really isn't that good at Sage Mode based off what we've seen. Right? He didn't use it against the 4th Raikage either. You could counter me and say, well, it's because he casually dodged it. He didn't need Sage Mode against the 4th. But he definitely was on the brink of defeat against Obito. He admitted a game of inches. Hence, he's just not that good at using it. That's an induction you can make based off the one observation we have where he talks about it. So, all right. When Sasuke spoke with the Edo Hokage, what happened if he still decided to slowly leave? How would the Hokage react, and how would the fight between them and Taka go? Simply put, Hashirama and Tobirama would break out, and they would press Orochimaru, probably breaking the seal of the others. And simply put, the Hokage would fucking obliterate Taka. Sasuke is not beating Hashirama, absolutely not, and definitely not beating Casey and Minato and the rest of the Hokage all working in conjunction. They would get fucked up. Orochimaru would be fucked. He can't definitely not control Hashirama. He can break out whenever he feels like it, and the only reason he didn't is because he didn't want to break out of it. So they would be fucked, and they would get fucking bodied, and that would be the end of that. Let's see. White Mask Obito is already marked. Yeah, but if we presuppose the speed is significantly higher for Obito, then that wouldn't work, because he would simply be too fast and he would react to it in time. But if we presuppose the speed is relative between the two, then that mark would play a role. That's definitely the case. Sage Hashirama with wood clones versus allied shinobi forces. What do you think? Do you think Hashi solos? So we have to eliminate EMS Sasuke and KCM Naruto, right? To make the fight somewhat fair, because together at a certain point they would beat him. I do think he probably would solo them. If we exclude, let's also exclude 8 Gates, my guy. Let's exclude those 3 juggernauts. He probably beats all of them, to be honest. Did you by chance answer the question? Almost summoning into. Oh, I haven't actually. It's one I did miss. So, simply put, the best rational explanation for it is possibly a retcon or a change in the prerequisites to use these kind of things, because right, he didn't have knowledge of it. So how the hell would he bring back someone that was sealed by the Reaper Death Seal? It doesn't add up. So simply put, maybe the prerequisite of the Reaper Death Seal and the way it operates changed from part 1 to the war arc, because it just doesn't make sense. There really is no rational explanation to make it make sense besides a retcon and a change in prerequisites of these abilities. It's the only possible. Same thing with Hiruzen being the strongest of the Hokage. Obviously that was retconned, right? At part 1 he was stated to be the strongest. Clearly he's not by the war arc. There's a retcon taking place. So that's what I would say. Those are just some of the inconsistencies in Naruto, which happened in the Boruto manga. I feel so long. I don't care for spoilers. I think let's reach the time. I believe we're definitely approaching the time skip. We've been revealed that there's an Otsutsuki god that was the father of all jutsu, that he's all powerful, and that he uses a more powerful version of ninjutsu called shinjutsu, which is the father of all jutsu, and that ninjutsu pales in comparison to shinjutsu, essentially implying that he is so much superior to all these individuals that we have come to know and love, because he uses a different kind of jutsu. He uses shinjutsu, and that he is God himself almost at this point. So that's very telling, and that sets the stage for some preposterous increases in power for the main characters. You could even make a prediction and say, shit, Kawaki and Boruto are going to learn how to use these things. Is definitely a possibility. And at that point, Naruto and Sasuke would be complete fodder. I hope they're dead at that point, because I don't want them to just be useless fodder on the sidelines. I really don't. So, all right, folks. Any and all questions are welcomed. White Mask War Obito versus Akatsuki alive. When Kabuto summoned them, he didn't seem phased at all. Yeah, that observation and empirical event alone allows us to suggest he doesn't even take him serious with the Renegades. I could fucking fold all these guys by myself. It wasn't until he saw Edo Madara. Plus, he's aware of all the Akatsuki's abilities. He's basically the one who founded the new Akatsuki, not the old one with, you know, the political faction Nagato had with his partners. This new Akatsuki, right, for the sole purpose of the infinite Tsukuyomi. So he's aware of all their abilities. He saw them all and said, am I supposed to be threatened? Like, he didn't give a fuck. So he probably would beat them all. He probably would beat all of them. Pain, Itachi, all of them. All of them. He just scales above them. Period. He was able to deal with KCM2 Naruto, a superior version than the one we saw against Itachi and Pain. He beats them. Most likely beats them. He was even phased by Kabuto, Sage Mode Kabuto, who fought EMS Sasuke and Itachi simultaneously. So Kabuto plus the Akatsuki unfazed him. He didn't give a fuck about them. So, okay, do you think White Mask will I do think he beats Kabuto, yeah. I do think there's a good chance he beats Kabuto. I think so, but I think Obito has the hacks Obito can't prepare for, like inorganic reanimation. I think the speed gap would be the difference. He wouldn't be able to catch Obito, and Obito would catch on to his tricks. And if he wanted to, he could just BFR his ass into the Kami dimension and let him die there of starvation. Or whatever, die of just natural causes because of lack of nutrients or something. He could just do that if he really had to. I think the speed gap would be significant, at least. Do you think Kabuto's Edo army needed some changes? would have you changed to give them the most advantage in the war? I think he miscalculated by not immediately removing their personalities, like he did for Pain when he was talking to Itachi and he had to take away their personalities. He should have done that right off the jump to make them all bloodlusted, I guess you could say, theoretically. Theoretically, just bloodlusted, going all out, attacking the Shinobi Alliance, pressing them all with all they got. That's what he should have done with the army. And as far as the individuals, I mean, he wasn't able to get Jiraiya's according to him. Shisui, he never got that individual, but theoretically, maybe he could have looked harder and got some other individuals that would have been a problem, like Shisui. That would have been a huge problem. So the two big changes is bringing in more members that are legendary shinobi and right away taking away their personality so that there is no moment for rest for the Shinobi Alliance. They're pressing them hard right away. You're going to have some difference in outcomes probably. So that's what I would do if I had to make changes for Kabuto. What other characters would you like to see reanimated? Fugaku's one. Who else out there? Trying to think of individuals that were not shown. Fugaku's a big one. Obviously, Shisui and Jiraiya, yeah, besides them. Fugaku. Who else was not shown? There's probably other Kage throughout history. Maybe like the very first Kages. I'm sure they weren't present. It was only the third Reikage, right? Gaara's dad, the fourth Kazekage. Then we had Onuki Sensei, the Tsuchikage, and then we had his arch nemesis. I believe it was the Mizukage, the second. So maybe like other Kages, like the first of each village, the second of each village, the third of each village. That would have been interesting to see, and Fugaku as well. If you could stop one rapper from being assassinated in all of history, who would you choose? Sakumo. Oh, that's another person that's another individual I would definitely want to see. One rapper for being assassinated. Who probably would have had the most impact? It's hard to choose between Tupac and Biggie. It really is. They both had insane impacts on the rap community, the hip-hop community in general. It's hard to choose between the two. It really is. Maybe Tupac. Probably him. I think he'd have a bigger impact overall. I think he was more of an advocate for other things outside of rap in comparison to Biggie. He was more outspoken, which is why I would want to avoid his. I mean, in the perfect world, both of them, of course. You know. How would the story go if Naruto beat Sasuke at the end of part 1? Much more peaches and cream, I'd say. Right, so Sasuke would never go to Orochimaru. Orochimaru would still have to figure out how he would get a host's body, how to host a body. Sasuke would simply just train with Team 7, have a different progression as far as his power. He probably wouldn't be as strong early on, right, because he doesn't have Orochimaru there training him in the way he did. A lot of things would change. Itachi's plans would continue on. Orochimaru would have to figure out how to get Sasuke, or maybe just scratch that entirely. I think a possible scenario is Orochimaru going to the Leaf and trying to take Sasuke by force. I think that's a possibility, but obviously Konoha would prepare for that. And if anything, Itachi would intervene. Itachi would intervene and say, fuck no, you're not taking my brother. You're going to have to face me. And obviously Orochimaru's fearful of him because he knows he's inferior to Itachi. So things would go much more smoothly for Naruto. There's actually another argument you can make as well. And the argument would be that Naruto wouldn't be as ambitious. You could argue that his trials and tribulations are what made him increase so vastly, right? So a big goal of his, or a big, I guess, obstacle was Sasuke. Sasuke was a huge obstacle. So the reason he progressed so quickly power scaling wise was because of Sasuke himself, knowing that he had to catch up to Sasuke, which is why he learned the Rasen Shuriken so quickly, which is why he had to master Sage Mode so quickly, because he knows he had to close that gap, right? So I would say the progression would be slower for both, for Naruto and Sasuke, and transitively Team 7. They would progress slower because the desperation for improvement wouldn't be there as much, right? If Naruto theoretically changed Sasuke's ideology and said you don't need to gain power this way, then Sasuke would do it the organic way, which is just training normally, right? So things would change drastically. So do you feel Kingdom Hearts would be an interesting verse to look into? I'm familiar with. I'm a little bit familiar, not at all though, but I'm familiar of it. Familiar with some aspects. It is an interesting verse. One in the future I could delve into and try to understand more. I don't know if you have, and if you have, I apologize. Spark it as a what if on what would happen if Obito didn't tell Sasuke Itachi's truth, and it's great. I'm actually not sure if I've reacted to that or not. If not, then that's something I definitely got to react to. I'm not sure if I have or not. That would greatly alter the story. Next member video by chance this week for sure. Next member video this week for sure. I'm gonna drop some stuff for sure. Time is going to open up for me because of university obligations. Those will be done for the next month or so. I want to amp up production and videos, stuff like that. Specifically original content, like my Black Frieza versus Gohan Beast video that recently I dropped. Benefits on being a member: you get members only videos that I won't drop on the regular channel. You get access to our private Discord, which I tend to prioritize even more that I have more time. Maybe like more discussions of how to debate and stuff like that. So you get private Discord access, members only videos, and priority in streams for questions and things like that. So focusing about becoming a member, and you get access to all those things, and you become a Chad. So, you ever watched a Chuck vid yet? I have not, but I do want to. His comic book, his videos interest me for sure, and I definitely got to react to those and see how those do. People enjoy those reactions as well. But to add on to the member thing, the members have a big say-so on what kind of videos they want to see. So, definitely. Naruto vids or Death Note? In the future, yes. Right now I have a video about debating on there. I have a couple videos on there. But yeah, those are going to be on there as well. I'm going to go more in depth on these Naruto topics and other verses as well as I become more familiar with more anime and manga. So. Alright, folks, continue to ask questions. Any donations are appreciated as well. You're all goats for it. And thanks to all the members as well. You guys are goats as well. All goats. I'd say lagged sound, but you guys are all goats. Appreciate you guys. And make sure to hit the like button as well, folks, if you haven't already. Get yourself in an algorithm. Do you think anybody in Naruto history could solve the Kira case? It'd have to be the greatest of minds, and even then I don't think they would, but someone like Shikamaru possibly. Someone like possibly Itachi. Someone like Shikaku, Shikamaru's dad. It would have to be someone of that caliber of intelligence. I did a debate on this actually. Shikamaru versus Light Yagami on intelligence. If you guys want to see that, it's on my channel. I debated someone. I argued for Light. But to not spoil the debate, the premise, to keep it simple, was simply that the universe itself, known as Death Note, emphasizes intelligence more. There's more empirically to suggest someone's intelligence, right? Empirically speaking, and usually feats triumph over statements. Hence, right, this cat and mouse game that is now of biblical proportions to the anime fandom was so great that it allowed us to get an idea of Light and L's intelligence. And conversely, Naruto doesn't really do that. We have, Shikamaru's intelligence and his IQ stated to be, above 200 and things of that nature. But the Death Note universe emphasizes intelligence much more. But if someone were to solve it, it'd probably be Shikamaru, I'd say. And I don't think he could. I don't. So. What would you think would happen if one of the Path got put in a genjutsu? Do they all get caught in it, or is it just the one Path that gets trapped? What I think, because everything that the Nagato sees is theoretically, as there is this sort of, I guess you could say, string chakra string that Nagato's pulling when controlling these paths, it would simply go back to him and he would see the genjutsu and he'd be caught in it. If they theoretically could be caught in genjutsu. That's what I think would happen. Their field of vision connects back to him. Alright, let's see here. Ten Tails versus Hashirama. Never thought about it, but I think Hashi could do it. There's arguments that he could. He did subdue the Ten Tails. I think the Ten Tails, there's a good argument empirically that the Ten Tails continues to get stronger and stronger. And we see it in the war arc. I think there's at a certain point he won't be able to deal with the Ten Tails on his own. Maybe early on, if theoretically the Ten Tails doesn't get strong enough, maybe he could seal him somehow. But in the grand scheme of things, I'd say Hashirama most likely fails to beat him. Beat it, I should say. Can the Mystery Gang solve the Kira case? Based on their illustrious history and the many cases that they have solved, you can make an argument. I just don't think that they've ever been, at least to my knowledge of Scooby-Doo, they haven't had a case of this magnitude, right? Where they're dealing with an elite intelligence with a mystical tool that puts that elite intelligence, right, that elite intelligent being in a very powerful position. But due to the gag reel aspect of these sort of shows like Scooby-Doo and the Mystery Gang, it's a possibility that they could solve it. You know, if we get the benefit of the doubt and they have these gag reel powers, then it's possible. Same thing with SpongeBob, right? SpongeBob versus Goku, which I reacted to recently. The guy has just done extraordinary things. Extraordinary. So, what's the difference between membership 4 and 6? Actually, I might have to touch up on that. There really isn't a difference. So 4, you'll still get the access to the private Discord. And your chat either way. But 6, I'm going to make something that only those people that pay 6 get. I just haven't thought of what yet. SpongeBob is autoversal as fuck. Clearly he is. He has the string, known as the string, the episode The String. He essentially has a reality transcending string that allowed him to casually erase his universe and his reality in its entirety, theoretically. That is preposterous, and Goku would be at his mercy. Now, in character, you know, Goku's the type to egg on his opponent, to tell him, show me what you got. Right? Goku would laugh and say, okay. And being a multi-dimensional being above that of 4D, if you take some of his feats hyper literally, one karate chop, one kick, one slap, and Goku is finished. You know, he just scales too high. So, and that's the commonality amongst these characters and cartoons. Popeye, you know, SpongeBob, fucking Looney Tunes, all these characters are beyond that of most anime characters. How strong do you scale Haku? I think within her own respective mirrors, that's where she scales the highest. Bloodlusted, I would say she is Lightspeed within those mirrors respectively. But I think she's easy to break down mentally as well by using Zabuza as a pawn. But if I had to scale her Bloodlusted, she's on par with someone the likes of maybe. It's hard to see who I would put her up against. I'd say she scales to. I tend to believe she doesn't scale above Zabuza. Again, that's unprovable, but I don't think she scales above him. I would say an amped Naruto at best. Oh shit, shout out to Levi. I appreciate you, brother, for becoming a member. That deserves a soundboard recognition. There it is. Appreciate you, brother. You're a goat for that. Can't remember. Thanks for the great vids. Appreciate that, brother. Call you Chad. Definitely. All you guys are goats. Everyone that's donated is a goat as well. Appreciate that, brother. Alright, Johnny Sins versus Fiction. Who wins? Johnny Sins has a legacy that is very unique. He has had several occupations in a short amount of time, which implies that he transcends normal reality. Right? So he transcends normal reality, and not many individuals in our reality can do that. Right? We've seen him be a doctor, an astronaut, a firefighter, a plumber, and he does that, and it's very impressive. But against Fiction, he would have a tough time against the gag reel characters. I think that's where he would have trouble. But I believe he scales very high. And he's a legend. Johnny Sins is a legend. Alright, folks. About 15 more minutes, unless someone donates, and I shall stay longer. Again, thanks for all the donations. For the members, you guys are all goats. And next time I will fix this soundboard, because I click on it and it lags, as you guys can tell. There it is. I'll fix it. It won't lag no more. But you guys are all goats. Appreciate it. And make sure to hit the like button as well if you haven't already. Haku's the guy, by the way. That's right. I always forget that shit. I'm a I guess a victim of the Haku gender confusion trend, unfortunately. I always say her. But it's him. I guess in a way Kishimoto predicted this gender confusion trend with Haku. He's definitely a great writer. Maybe react to some what ifs by Swag. He got good ones like what would happen if Minato never died. I might have done that one already. I'm not sure. If I haven't, then that's definitely one I could do. I gotta check. I've done so many topics under the sun within the Naruto verse. Hanagahaku was a guy. My child brain exploded. Theoretically, you could hypothesize that Kishimoto is a prophet and that he predicted this gender confusion would take place and is why he made Haku and confused us with his gender. So he is a prophet, truly. Truly a prophet. Alright, folks, continue on. Any and all questions are welcomed. Saitama versus Naruto. From what I do know, I know he had that. I don't know if it's that recent anymore. He had that feat where he destroyed anywhere from stars to galaxies. If you highball him, he probably beats Naruto. If you lowball him, he might lose to Naruto. Barry on Naruto specifically. So I would say Saitama highballed, Naruto if Saitama's lowballed. Currently. Now, if you presuppose he's a gag character and that his power is boundless, and clearly Saitama, which I don't presuppose. Yes, there are gag aspects within the One Punch Man manga that I'm aware of, but that's not enough to conclude that he's boundless like fucking SpongeBob or something. That's not the case. Alright, folks, any and all questions are welcomed. There's actually a question I missed here. It's a sports question. Who's your top 10 in the NBA right now? NBA. So I'll answer this very quickly. Number one right now is probably Giannis. Number two. Let's see here. Embiid, possibly. He has high numbers every night. 3. Maybe Luka. 4. AD, current AD. The last 7 games. 5. Lillard. He's having very much success with Trailblazers right now. 6. Curry. The Warriors are having their struggles. He's not a top 5 player right now. All time, he's very up there, but he's not currently top 5. 7. KD. 8, LeBron. As much as I like LeBron, he's not playing like a #1 player in the world right now. 9, Jokic or Jokic, however you say his name. And 10, probably Booker with the Suns currently. All right, Three-Eyed Madara versus Biju Susanoo Sasuke, like the one at the Final Valley. Three-Eyed Madara versus Biju Susanoo Sasuke. Now, Three-Eyed Madara's placing is very ambiguous, right? We didn't even get to see what he's capable of because Black Zetsu stabbed him in the fucking back, and we got a very lackluster, anticlimactic ending to Shippuden with Kaguya's dumbass ending, the series basically. However, due to Sasuke and Naruto's success against Kaguya and even being able to tag her, and Sasuke stating, quote, and I quote, that Kaguya has a much greater chakra and is a much greater threat than Madara was, I would say Sasuke with that Biju Susanoo most likely beats Three-Eyed Madara. So, because of all those empirical pieces that you can puzzle together. And I would argue, if you want to argue for the antithesis, which is Madara, you would have to use speculation rather than empirical evidence. You'd have to speculate that Madara is this insane level of power because you have 3 eyes, even though there's nothing empirically to suggest that. What do some people highball or lowball characters when scaling? A lot of the time, there's 2 culprits for this. One culprit is ignorance. Some people, I've seen this all over. I'm in many forums of debate. People simply say, I feel like, it seems like, from what I've seen, this is this and this is why. That's fallacious. That is an appeal to ignorance. That is an appeal to emotion. Those are not logically valid ways of thinking and constructing arguments. Another culprit is willful denial, right? We have guys that wank characters or they lowball characters so that they can come up victorious in any such a debate. Those are the 2 main culprits of lowballing and highballing. Now, one additional culprit is ambiguity. So, I guess a good example would be someone like, let's say, Three-Eyed Madara. Good example. You can only so much scale him objectively. You can bring up feats, you can bring up statements, but at some point you're gonna have to give some arbitrary degree of scaling, right? Like I just did. So some people will consider me lowballing him and say, well, you're not giving him the benefit of the doubt. Some people would say I highball him. That's another culprit, and sometimes that's inevitable. But the first 2 I listed are mostly the reasons why, unfortunately. So, were you ever hyped on seeing Eren fight against the Beast Titan? Personally, who do you think would win? Shit, that was obviously a fight I definitely wanted to see. The Beast Titan, man, with his fucking baseball MLB level arm, where he throws these, he throws heat against Eren. I think later Eren, and later on in Attack on Titan would beat him. Early Eren would get fucking destroyed. Obviously, I'm not talking about the Eren that summons the Rumble. Obviously, he beats Beast Titan. I'm talking about before that, right before that, where he's really learning how to use his abilities. I would say he probably beats the Beast Titan. Early Eren gets fucking shat on by the Beast Titan. The Beast Titan's putting everyone else in their place, implying his superiority above the other Titans. So that's what I would say. Beast Titan's cold. One of the coldest anime characters of all time. So. But in other news, let's see. Have you ever watched Hunter x Hunter or MHA? I have not, but I've heard Hunter x Hunter is very good for most people. Almost universally, I've heard that the plot is very good and that it's very emotionally appealing. Scaling wise, I hear they don't scale really high. I don't know, but I've heard they don't scale high. But either way, I do want to check that out. And MHA as well, I want to check that out. So, I have a friend that's knowledgeable on it. He's told me about it. He tried to explain the scaling to me when we had time to discuss. That's definitely on my bucket list as well. I'd say Hunter x Hunter's above that right now on my bucket list of animes to check out. Another news though, since the end of the year is approaching, I do want to do some sort of end of the year stream besides this kind of stream, or maybe I do tier list for fun, and maybe not even anime tier list, but just any topic. I'm thinking I come in and you guys just give suggestions on what topics to do. It can be anything random, and whatever the case may be. I'm thinking of doing that for the end of the year. you know, for the end of the year, doing something of that nature. It could be the end of the year stream where we do tier lists. I can call it a tier list marathon or some shit. It's a possible idea that I'm thinking of for the end of the year. Ozaru Vegeta Saiyan Saga versus Ginyu Force. Saiyan Saga Vegeta? So you mean the one that, I'm assuming the one that fought Goku at the very beginning? He would lose to the Ginyu Force. I believe that's the one that you're referring to. What's on your watch list for animes? Jujutsu Kaisen. I think it's what's called Chainsaw Man. One Piece eventually. That's going to be a task because I know that shit is fucking long. Hunter x Hunter. Demon Slayer. Number one on my list right now is Jujutsu Kaisen because of Gojo. He really, really interests me greatly. I think his abilities are very, very intriguing. So I definitely want to check out that verse in that manga, all the literature that's available. And so that'll be the next one. So yeah, Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer, Hunter x Hunter, Chainsaw Man, Hunter x Hunter. I just said Hunter x Hunter. One Piece. And is there any others on my mind? As of now, those are like the top 5. You think Kanye can ever come back from his career suicide, or is he just too far gone? I think it's possible, but the more damage he does, the deeper the hole he's digging for himself. I would say he would need to get off the fucking cameras, stop being in the spotlight, maybe check himself, honestly, into a mental institution or something, get on some heavy medication, kind of calm his mind down, condition it to think rationally again, because I see what he's doing. He's playing the contrarian to the left-wing media. That's not a bad thing, but he's overdoing it with these bizarre and outlandish claims like the Nazi party being beneficial and Hitler being a beneficial individual. That's complete bullshit. It's not correct. That is delusional, and he's going off the rails, right? He's playing contrarian to a problematic side of society, the left-wing media, especially the extreme left-wing, which censors everything that doesn't coincide with its ideology, which is very dangerous. But Kanye's gone off the rails. He would have to clean himself up, apologize, go from there. Maybe then he could come back. So, my bad. Namek Saga. Okay, Namek Saga. I'm trying to remember his power level here. The beginning of the Namek Saga. I tend to think he wouldn't beat Ginyu. Especially beginning Namek Saga. So overall, I would say he probably wouldn't beat the Ginyu Force in its entirety. I think they would overwhelm him. Maybe end of Namek Saga is a possibility. But beginning, probably not. Let's see here. It was very satisfying watching the Titans rip apart the Titan that ate Aaron's mom. Oh, that's right. Yes, that was very satisfying. It's a moment we all wanted to see, that's for sure. So, that is definitely the case. MHA Season 6 is super heat. I've heard good things about it. You know, all the ones on my bucket list on the top 5 are most definitely shows I've only heard basically good things about. Maybe react to Seth's old vid on Minoru Tanaka from Death Note. From the new Death Note chapter gets light. Not sure if you've read it. I would definitely read it, and I'll definitely be a member's video for sure. Definitely. You can't use it because he lost his tail. Just hypothetically. With his tail, I mean, there's a possibility that his power level would suffice in defeating the entire Ginyu Force, but without it, I doubt it. Alright, folks, continuing. About 5 more minutes or to 10 more minutes, unless someone donates, then I shall continue. Great questions, by the way, both IRL and anime. You think Saiyan Tails hold him back? In the moment, clearly it doesn't because it gives them some sort of multiplier. I believe it is 10 if I'm not mistaken. But I think overall it could be detrimental to their long-term success. Right? You could theoretically say that these tails, because of what it does, it makes them mindless, I guess, to some extent. From what I know, it limits their ability to reach new forms outside of that. So I would say yes, to some extent, long-term it does hold them back. Holds back their progression of new forms to achieve. Right, with like imagine Goku with a tail still. Would he have reached these levels without it? Next video you're releasing. The next video, so I'm planning in the next month to up production to a new rate and drop 3 original videos in the next month, from like mid-December to mid-January. One of the videos that I'm pretty sure I'm going to do is kind of a nod to one of Seth's old videos on the dissonance and delusions of the anti-power scalers in the Dragon Ball community. My video is going to be a little different. I'm planning on exposing rat tactics in the debate community, something along those lines, a video along those lines, and really going into depth on the most common rat tactics that I have seen throughout the debate community and in life in general when I see arguments taking place. That's one video that's around those lines that's going to be dropped. As far as anime related content, I still have yet to come with specific details. There's definitely going to be a Naruto related video, no doubt about it. And maybe another one that isn't Naruto. So, how do you feel about the riots happening over in Asia like China and Thailand? From what I hear about China, China is being extremely tyrannical and literally not allowing individuals to even go out of their homes because of a certain policy, which is extremely tyrannical and just, I would say, it's inhumane. I've seen videos of people having to climb outside their house because of fires because they can't open their door and go through there. It's fucking bizarre and truly tyrannical. So it's a damn shame. It's a damn shame that that's the extent that these communist bodies have gone to. Yet some people in this state, in this country, state communism is something beneficial, which is just absurd. Human history clearly illuminates that communism is very detrimental and it goes against human nature itself. Human nature is not one in which people are to be equal in all aspects. Equality is impossible. Theoretically, equality will never be possible anyway. At the end of the day, you're going to have an all-powerful bureaucracy at the top. China has an all-powerful bureaucracy holding people in their homes and not allowing them to leave because of some bullshit policy. So there is no such thing as equality. Communism is a facade. It's a fantasy. And China illuminates that. Clearly. Clearly. Sounds good. Doxing is one of the go-tos as well if you beat certain people in debates. Precisely. That's definitely going to be one of the variables I discuss. Definitely. Do you think USA could beat China and Russia at a war? In today's modern world, what superpowers automatically default to are nuclear weapons, right? And it's a lose-lose because enough nuclear power would be detrimental not just to a country, but to the entire Earth on a global scale. So that's why I think superpowers going to war is going to be very difficult to commence. There's going to have to be one hell of a catalyst for that to actually take place, for Russia or China or the US to actually be willing to use a nuclear weapon, because it's going to be a lose-lose. Once these nuclear weapons that can cause damage of biblical proportions and make Nagasaki look like fucking child's play, it's going to destroy everything. Life might not even be sustainable on Earth. So I highly doubt that the rational minds that lead these countries would do something like that. However, so simply put, no one would win. No one. With no nukes, it would come down to numbers. China has like 3 to 5 times the population of the United States. So they would have the numbers advantage. You could theoretically say that the United States might have more advanced technology as far as weaponry. I'm not too well versed on the current technology as far as weapons, clearly. But I would say China, numbers-wise, would just overwhelm the U.S. Same with libertarianism. Yeah, the truth is, with political ideologies and ideologies of governmental structures, there is no perfect structure, right? From my own subjective lens, the optimal structure is one that keeps balance, which is why the founding fathers had a great idea, in my opinion. The idea of balance, right? The idea of checks and balances, which is why there are 3 branches of government, not one that leads all aspects, right? The judicial, the legislative, and the executive. The president isn't all-powerful. Congress isn't all-powerful. Judges, the Supreme Court isn't all-powerful. There is balance. That ensures fairness. It doesn't ensure perfection, because perfection is inevitably unreachable. It never will be. Never will be. We can only coincide and conform to our own human nature. Human nature is hierarchical. Human nature is a meritocracy, right? The animal kingdom itself is a meritocracy. Even animals that have no rational thinking operate on merit, right? The food chain is on merit. The most capable animals are the predators, and the ones that aren't are the prey. That's the way the world works, right? So the founding fathers kept that in mind and said we have to create a system that coincides and conforms to our own human nature. A monarchy doesn't work. Why? Because there's going to be a person in absolute power who will be corrupted by the very power that they hold, which is why monarchies all fail, basically. Even the UK has somewhat of a parliament, so it's not a strict monarchy, right? People say, well, what about UK? The UK has a parliament as well. What is your best government in your opinion? Capitalism? Capitalism is one of the best, if not the best, because it coincides with human nature. The best get what they deserve. The worst get what they deserve. These appeal to emotion arguments that I hear about communism and socialism are quite comical. They say, oh, we all deserve this. No, we don't. The people that work the hardest deserve the most. What about the distribution of wealth? The reality is the best deserve the best. The worst deserve the worst. That's the way the world works. And what happens is if you change the governmental structure and the social contracts that are established, there will be resentment. And eventually there will be an uprising. You saw it in human history with these monarchies or other governmental structures that failed in the past. What will happen is productivity won't be as high, so the hyper-productive individuals of society will cease to be productive because of the inability to rise in the social hierarchy, right? You're not going to make more money because in communism, for example, you make the same money as the next guy. That goes against human nature. That decentivizes. That doesn't incentivize anything. It definitely won't incentivize happiness either. It will incentivize resentment, actually. So the antithesis of our goal will be the outcome if we ever go to communism or socialism. Now, socialism in some aspects is okay. Education. Okay, everyone deserves an education. You keep that. Something like medical attention or whatever it's called exactly, Medicaid, that should be somewhat of a socialism aspect because everyone needs to be attended to health-wise to some extent. So, how do you truly feel about socialism? On a grand scale, I do think it's not accomplishable, and it definitely won't result in the most optimal world. It definitely won't be no utopia. The closest thing to utopia is equal opportunity. There will never be equal outcome. There will never be 100% happiness. That is a facade that many people think is attainable but is not. What the problem is that people overestimate our ability. There is no humility. People think that the government's perfect and that they could fix the world in a way that will make everyone happy and everyone healthy. That's impossible. People don't realize the government are just people. The government is just people that can only come up with a X amount of great solutions. People don't understand that. Maybe they don't want to understand because maybe they want what they want and they're not looking at it objectively, which is a problem in social media and even in government. Politicians, especially on the left, appeal to emotion way too much. They create legislation because of emotional biases, not because of logistics or logic in general. So it's hilarious. It's hilarious that logic is dying, despite the great advancements in technology, the great discoveries that are being made, the obvious hierarchical nature of our universe. Logic is dying. Logic is dying. We see it all around, right? The confusion with genders. There's two genders, man. The virtual signaling and also the creation of pronouns, trying to change linguistics to feel special and to feel like you're above someone. That's comical. It really is. And honestly, in my opinion, as controversial as it sounds, logic needs to be established because logic keeps society above water. There has to be presuppositions made about society to keep it working. Truly. How strong is Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta? I don't think he reaches anyone of God level once God Key is implemented, I don't think they reach the Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta competes. Again, it's not canonical, at least from what I know, but it's tough to tell. But I would say scales below people with God Key. Do you see Seth's video on DBGT? I need to check that out. I know he dropped it recently. That's definitely this week. I'm going to check that out. Emotion goes high and logic goes low. Precisely. The idea of balance is all around us, right? The more logic, the less emotion. The more emotion, the less logic. That's just the way the world works. That's why leaders need to be stoic. The idea of stoicism needs to be implemented. Because once emotions come into place, inevitably it will cloud your judgment. Right? Now, emotions, of course, need to be considered in these abstract concepts like the death penalty and things of that nature, our legal system. I understand that. But there are some things that emotions shouldn't be even present in, such as a congressional meeting or something like that. There shouldn't be any emotion there. It should be very limited at the bare minimum. Do you think countries should interfere with foreign affairs at all, or should they leave them be their own downfall, even if they could be helped? Now, I do believe in a basic level of human equality, meaning everyone should have a chance, right? Equal opportunity. So I do believe the superpowers of the world should aid the third world countries where people are in true poverty, where people have a real reason to complain, not complain over some bullshit they saw on social media and read about, right? So I do think superpowers have a duty to aid truly suffering countries, third world countries, where starvation and poverty is rampant. I think there's a duty that should be there. So I would say yes, they should help. So there should be some sort of foreign affairs to a certain extent, right? So, what's your opinion on weed? Should it be legalized or not? And for the people in jail because of it? In my opinion, a grown adult should be able to do weed. And if they ruin their own life, that's on them. It shouldn't be a criminal activity to do so. Weed, from what I've seen empirically, doesn't really have any side effects. Doesn't really cause you to be under the influence, at least compared to psychedelics or alcohol. Alcohol makes you substantially more disoriented and under the influence than weed. Weed is not a problem. There's a very extract from weed that little kids use, CBD. There's little kids using CBD for whatever illness they may have. It's truly bizarre that weed is still so taboo. There's no issue with it. Now, of course, there is the case, just like anything else used in moderation, where some people become fucking losers. That shouldn't be a criminal activity, though. That's just their own downfall because of their own complacency and laziness. That shouldn't be a crime. The repercussions will come, either way. So I think it should be legalized everywhere, honestly. I do. Now, as far as for children, I don't know if children should be using weed. The CBD extract is fine, right? Because there is no mental effect. It's all mostly physical. It does relax the mind to some extent, but it's not like THC per se. For adults, it should be legalized completely. For children, I tend to be more hesitant to say. I don't want a 10-year-old using weed when he's still learning about the way of the world. It could be detrimental to his development, his or her development. So, but for adults, absolutely. And the people in jail should be released. That's bullshit. That they're fucking in prison because of weed. So, now that I think about it, are there any female power scalers? Not any popular ones. I've never even seen a debate with a female in power scaling ever, which is unfortunate. Truly unfortunate. It would be cool to have a very respected and intelligent female power scaler out there, but there really is not, unfortunately. All right. We're going back to what I was saying. Humanity is instinctually built upon a meritocracy. Humans naturally deviate to a meritocracy. Right? Survival of the fittest. Obviously not as dramatic as 1,000 years ago when tribes had to kill other tribes for resources. It's not that serious because we live in first world conditions. But either way, we deviate towards that. excuse me, we don't deviate. We gravitate towards that because that's our very nature. And to deviate from that is detrimental to humanity and will build resentment. And eventually there will be an uprising, and you'll have something like the fall of Rome or something like that. The fall of these civilizations that failed to come up with a adequate and sufficient enough ideology to implement on society. So, all right, folks. I know I said this like 20 minutes ago, but about 5 more minutes for sure this time. I went on an interesting tangent. Unless someone donates, then I'll stay longer, of course. Any questions, and all questions are welcomed. I do also appreciate the IRL questions and the philosophical ones. They're very interesting. Any and all questions, folks. Make sure to hit the like button, by the way, if you haven't already. Make sure to hit the like button. There it is. Make sure to hit the like button. Again, I'll fix the soundboard before the next stream. It's unfortunate that it lags like that. Apologies. Any and all questions, folks. Any and all. Helping off. Thanks for the combos. Appreciate you, brother, and thanks for becoming a member. You're now a Chad. Appreciate it. And yeah, I'll definitely be dropping some more members videos this week. There's a lagged celebration. Appreciate it, brother. Alright, folks, any final questions you may have? Any final questions at all? What's your setup like? I use for the sake of RAM and processing power, I use a gaming laptop. So that ensures better and faster processing of videos and things of that nature and better resolution. Now the specific computer, I'd have to look at the settings. But as far as camera, I actually just use my phone, but iPhones have very good cameras, so eventually I do want to upgrade to an actual camera, so I don't have to use my phone. As far as mic, I believe these are called Yetis, I believe. Let me see the brand here. No, Blue Ball microphones actually are very good quality. So decent quality and decent equipment. As time goes on, I'll up the stakes, up the quality of equipment as well as the channel grows. Okay, last one. If Mikami didn't mess up, do you think Light would have beaten Nier? I think Light was deteriorating as far as his ability to objectively, rationally deduce things, and I think either way he would have been caught. There was enough on the table for Nier that L left for him that Light would have been caught anyway. So I do think Nier would have caught him eventually, despite Mikami's mistake. Light, ironically, became what he was trying to fight against, malevolent. At the very beginning, he was, I would say, morally righteous, wanted to clean up the streets, keep it very simple. But as time went on, his own pride made him become the devil. Right? Pride is the devil, and he became the devil by the end of it. It was more about his legacy and his superiority over humanity rather than justice. Justice went out the window at a certain point within the Death Note timeline. You can even argue L's downfall was because of the same thing. it wasn't even about justice. It was about one-upping his opponent, which is why he failed. He should have stayed objective and stoic. Maybe he would have caught Light before Light caught him. So there are many lessons to extrapolate from that biblical, proportioned cat and mouse game. Truly. You think there will be a Death Note sequel? Only have one shot to go off. That question, sadly. Possibly. But to set up the stakes as they once were, it's going to be difficult. Maybe what's it called? Instead of a sequel, maybe another interpretation or a version. I wouldn't mind that. But a sequel is going to be difficult if you want to one-up or at least match the level of greatness that the first Death Note storyline was. It's going to be very, very difficult to do. But alright, folks, I think that is all. I appreciate all the donations. Thanks to the members, and thanks for all the questions in general. Before I depart, make sure to join my Discord. Ask questions. The more questions, the better. All questions, so that these are more in depth, right? And my answers will also be more in depth because I prepare ahead of time. If you ask ahead of time, so that my questions are more in depth and thorough. Again, I answer these in depth as well, but they're even more in depth because I have more prep time, I guess you could say. So make sure to join the Discord. It's in the description below. Also, follow me on Twitch because that's where I'm going to do this month. I'm going to do reaction to the newest Boruto chapter that's going to come out and DBS. I'm going to start reacting to DBS manga as well. So make sure to follow me on Twitch to be, up to date on that. And once again, thanks for all the support, folks. I'm planning to do an end of the year stream. It's going to be different from these. It's going to be maybe tier lists or something of that nature, something for the end of the year to celebrate the end of the year. So hope you guys enjoyed this video, this stream. Make sure to once again hit the like button, and I shall catch you in the next stream. Until then, stay classy, folks.